Hello, this is Gina. It has been my greatest benefit to be a part of this class this semester in my seminary that allows us to explore leadership problems within organizations. Now, this problem wasn't really a problem. It actually started as an intimate conversation between three colleagues in a corner of a cafe as we just talked about life, life goals, life visions, what we wanted to be about and be up to in life. And from that birth, refresh. And it's like a logo on a computer where sometimes the computer is stuck and not working, and you're told to push the refresh button. And what wasn't quite right somehow seems to be a bit better. And we believe that sometimes life is that same way and it just doesn't seem to be working. And you need a space to push the refresh button, to catch your breath, gather your thoughts, think about it, maybe choose to go a different way. And so these three friends, we kind of have this concept. They help to flesh out this concept about this organization. And then eventually we invited two or three other friends to be a part. And from there, we formed the board. So you can probably see that this group of women who are friends, who are close, who have bonded, we have very similar morals and values, life lens, perspectives, and all of those things have been great for the organization. It has allowed us to come to a lot of decisions quickly to move forward because we're in such one accord. And because we have served so extensively and had a history prior to the organization, we have deep personal close friendships, and we're just very similar in a lot of ways. That has really been beautiful in a lot of ways for the organization. But simultaneously, as we evolve in the organization, we do realize that it is also our probably our biggest blind spot. That there's a whole group of women out there for which we are kind of off of the radar with, and they're off of the radar with us because our life experiences and our life communities are very different. Now, because Refresh has a vision of all women living their best lives, and we exist, literally exist, to empower women to refresh their own lives, we want to be sensitive to that blind spot. We want to own that we need to add to our board women who are very different from us, whether that's in life stage, in ethnicity, in life experiences, whether they're single, married, or divorced, with or without children, just a different lens, multiple perspectives brought to the leadership table if we plan to have longevity and sustainability for years to come. So, with that being said, the problem kind of really evolved from just great friendships coming together to do something great in the world, and now having to be intentional about increasing the seats that are at this decision making table and moving forward to ensure that the organization is relative and in existence for years to come. And so, with that being said, part of the solutions that we are now generating for the organization is one, we are focusing on the board. We really do believe that everything rises and falls on leadership. And so we have begun this very systematic approach to determining what skill sets, what personalities, what strengths are absolutely critical for this organization to go forward. Instead of looking at friendships and like, oh, I really like Esther, I wish she was on the board, we are now looking at the organization through the lens of what is needed to ensure that holes and gaps that currently exist are filled, and then what is needed to make sure that different voices and lenses are at the table for the future. So having those descriptors, having those roles defined are a huge piece of what we're doing as we think through specifically the board of directors, and then layering that with other teams, but creating this objective lens through which to select people for those roles. The second part of what we're doing is looking closely at our intake process. That has been an incredibly tedious process, but again, it has been so good for us. We have begun to tap into different assessments, like the Myers-Briggs. We've begun to look at different books like Strength Finders and that particular link that allows you to do a testing. We've begun to examine qualitative interview questions that allows us to really hear a person's story and to really know what then will they bring to the table. We've also begun to consider logistical information like the term length, the expectations, looking at both the professional skill sets as well as the soft skills to see how do these people merge into the vision and the mission of Refresh. There are certainly people that I can be very endeared to, but they may not be a good fit for serving in a leadership capacity for the organization, and vice versa. So we are all doing that as the current board, looking at both the board of directors directors defining those roles. And number two, looking at the intake process. Number three, we are looking at the professional development side of the organization. Now, this is our first year in our 5 years of existence and being able to examine this specific piece. And we're looking at that, again, through the lens of longevity and sustainability. I have served in ministry for many years, and I've watched people move towards burnout because they're pouring and pouring and pouring and never really receiving. So as we consider our professional development for our leadership teams, we want to be clear about empowering those teams, making sure that those teams are well, learning from people who have been in existence for a while. How do you stagger your teams? How do you put in mandatory breaks and rest? How do you do systematic checks throughout your organization to ensure that the people that you are serving, who are serving others, are also being served? So those are just three examples of the things that we're doing to improve leadership sustainability and longevity for our organization. Now, how will we evaluate that? Well, some of it will be immediate. It will be immediately obvious to notice. For example, our board is currently 80% of one ethnicity. We know that as we're going through the intake process, that we are specifically looking for people of different ethnicities. We're specifically looking for people of different age brackets. We're looking for people with different life experiences. We're looking for people who have different passion points than us. And so, just in simple physical just representation, that will be obvious, but also as we listen through those qualitative interviews and autobiographical interviews, we will be able to quickly know if we've diversified in our life experiences and our life lens and perspectives, because that comes out in a person's story. In addition to that, we've added like formal assessment pieces where, as suggested in one of our books, that we have written formal assessments and that we save them even for a year so that we can do some comparative analysis about what people are bringing to the table. We've also added the expectation that recruiting and training up the next person will be a part of the expectation for a board member. So the formal evaluation piece is helping us to really think through it, to not just be friends who are hanging in here together, but to actually have objective ways of assessing are people contributing to the longevity and sustainability of the organization. So the budget, as we work through this piece, again, this is our first year of doing professional development within our 5-year-old organization. So we are growing in the budget, but we are already committed to purchasing certain books that will help us with assessments like the strength finders for the team. We're committed to purchasing books that will also help us with our ideology, like the Way of the Shepherd, which kind of helps everybody to get on the same page. And we know that being on the same page and moving forward with the same vision definitely contributes to longevity and sustainability. We're also working with a consultant to bring in the Myers-Briggs piece, and doing those qualitative interviews, slowing down to hear people's story, is critical for us as well. Pros and cons have been one and the same almost, and that's interesting in that the pros of it is that we've really had to slow down. We've had to rethink things. We've had to go back to it and revamp. We've had to try it again. All of those things have been very time consuming. They don't have a lot of glitz and glam to them, but they have been good for the organization. The con of that is that it is time consuming. There are things that we thought we were over, done with, could move on, focus on something else, and we found ourselves back at the table again, making sure that we are being as objective as possible and that we are intentionally creating space to welcome, to really welcome, not just add, but to welcome and to hear other voices being at the table. And so that's easier said than done, and it's time consuming if you really want to give great thought to it and invite people to be a part of something that shows that we care about you and we considered you before asking you to be a part of this. In general, that then is the leadership issue area of growth that we're working on, helping to establish leadership for longevity and sustainability within the organization, being intentional about making room for the organization to be objective at the leadership level, and then bring in those voices, those lenses, those perspectives that will allow us to be relative and necessary for years to come. Thank you for the opportunity to share about Refresh, and thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this class.